The safety is off. There's a round in the chamber. This is Armed Alabama. Sponsored by McCoy Outdoor Company, Mobile's hometown full-line outdoor sporting products and gear store. An interactive talk show discussing self-defense, product reviews, shooting tips, safety, and more. Your calls, comments, and texts welcome at 343-0106. Now, here are your hosts, retired judge and certified NRA instructor Rusty Johnston, and certified NRA law enforcement instructor Adam Strange.
They're gonna pry these guns right out of my hands when they come to take them away. I believe in the rights that my fathers gave me when they signed the Constitution that day. No misguided president or crooked politician with a greasy pocket be spared. When the hard-working man gets tired of your cry, it's gonna rain right, beware. Don't tread on me, I'm American free. You're not gonna take it away. I stand up to fight for my freedoms and rights. That's the price you'll have to pay. Don't tread on me, I'm American free. Red-blooded to the core. You ain't ever had a fight in your life like the fight that you're reaching for.
All right, welcome to Armed Alabama, a 2-hour show where we talk about self-defense, firearm ammo selection, concealed carry, home protection, training, range etiquette, Alabama law, Mississippi law, Florida law, and of course, U.S. law. So glad you could join us. We've got a good show here for you tonight. If you remember, I had fresh off our visit to the NRA National Convention this past weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was at the World Congress Center. There was 15 acres under roof, nothing but guns, absolutely heaven. So we had a good time. We got a chance to see a lot of really good products, meet a lot of good people within the industry. And it was definitely a worthwhile visit.
Wouldn't that make Nancy Pelosi apoplectic?
Yeah, she'd freak out, have a fit. She'd go into anaphylactic shock or something.
They didn't invite her to speak?
No, they didn't invite Nancy Pelosi to speak. You know, that's a missed opportunity, I think. So if you have a comment or question, give us a call here at the studio. It's 251-343-0106. You can call or you can text to that same number. We'll be glad to hear from you. Like I said, we got a big show for you. Be sure and check us out on Facebook. We are broadcasting on Facebook Live as always. You can go to our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 1065, and be sure and like, save, and follow us on our Facebook page. Also, check us out on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel called Armed Alabama, of course, and be sure and like and subscribe to that channel. And check us out on the web, and that's armedalabama.com, and you can go there, and we have a lot of content there. The judges put a lot on there. Also, you can go there and sign up for our next class, and that class is May 13th. So it's not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. So if you're interested in the concealed carry home defense class, this class is second to none. Absolutely, it's a really good program. So you can go to our website, armedalabama.com/classes, and you can sign up for that. It's a very reasonable class, and it starts at 9 a.m. and it goes to around 4:30 or 5 p.m. That afternoon.
On Monday. No, that afternoon. I thought we were
no.
Extended class.
Saturday afternoon, May 13th. So be sure and bring a sack lunch because once we get started, we're not going to stop until we get done. So,
and if you go to our page, it tells you what you need to bring, how many rounds.
Yep.
And if you don't have a handgun, we have a few that we can loan you during the class. But we probably need to talk to you if you don't have one, or because we don't have an endless supply. These are just our personal handguns. But we'll try to accommodate you, and it might be a good way to kind of try different handguns out.
Yeah, and that would be the Armed Alabama concealed carry home defense class, and that will be at Three Brothers Arms, May 13th.
And before we forget, on the 18th of May is the Friends of the NRA Mobile Auction and Dinner, and that's at the Battleship USS Alabama Pavilion at 5:30. And easiest way to buy tickets for that is just Google Mobile Friends of the NRA, and it'll take you right to the site. You can buy them online. And we'll be there, and I hope to see you there.
Yeah, it's always a good event. We always have a good time. It's a great area or great place to have the event because you're right there with all the different exhibits within that pavilion at the battleship, and it's really, really a neat place.
And remember, we've got a Twitter page, which I've been posting for this show, which our speaker, or I guess is going to be Matt Green, to talk about the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, where ordinary people used firearms to take back their city from criminals and corruption, which is one of the reasons we have the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms. So I've been kind of tweeting that out every couple of hours. I'm not somebody that can use 140 characters, but I figured out the little trick is to put it in a picture form, like turn it into PDF or use a PowerPoint slide, and then convert that to a photo, and you can get a lot in. But I'm not. It's amazing to me the number of people that hang out on Twitter. I mean, I know a law professor, and fairly well in Georgetown, who I posted under some tweet he made. I said, I don't understand how a law professor, especially like a lawyer, can ever say anything in 140 characters. I said, I'll write something, and it'll get kicked back saying you had a limit of 1,000 words and you're 4,000 over. And it was a thumbs up onto that. So, but that is at Armed Alabama.
Yeah, and I want to tag on something too, Judge, about our class. We have a lot of listeners here from the Pensacola Cantonment area, and in our class, our certification and our credentials as instructors meet and actually exceed Florida's requirement for concealed carry permits. So you can take our class certification and you can take that with you as evidence, and is recognized by the state of Florida, where you can get your concealed carry permit. So, and of course, Three Brothers is only just a quick drive from Pensacola. It's not that far, 35 minutes or so, something like that. Oh, yeah.
And we thank them for hosting us each time they're in Stapleton.
Yeah, they do. They have a nice facility there, and they roll out the red carpet for us every time they're at Three Brothers, and we appreciate Paul and all of them there. All right. So, if you haven't got a chance, like I stated earlier, check out our Facebook page. I actually had a little bit of downtime Sunday at the NRA convention, and I went around like an idiot pretty much and did little videos with some of the really neat products and stuff. I saw some of it was kind of eclectic, but some of it was really neat as well. And, Judge, I seen some really, really nice furniture. I mean, it was just fine furniture. It could be, at home at any mansion or whatever, if you will, but it had little secret compartments and, sides of it slid out.
Oh,
and
wow.
then there was, you can have AR-15s or handguns or whatever. And it was really amazing. It was a mother and daughter team there that had the business, and she designed the furniture actually, and then contracted to have it made. And the craftsmanship was top notch.
I've got a book that you open up. It's the Alabama Code on Quartz, and you open it up, and it holds almost a full-size 9mm, and it's felt. And
so there was those kind of things, but it was very well made, and it was really neat. The sad thing is that when they tried to do this and design the furniture, they could not get a U.S. manufacturer to make it. There was no U.S. manufacturer. Of
course, they may be out of business or they've retooled.
They just didn't have the craftsmanship anymore to be able to do that. No, there's not a lot of them left, especially within North Carolina, because that used to be like the furniture capital of the United States. And
wow, and they're not there anymore.
No, and to get the level of quality that they needed or that they wanted for that furnishings, believe it or not, they had to go to Vietnam.
Wow.
Is that not sad?
That's amazing. Mr. Producer, how much time do we have left? 10 seconds. We'll get it after the break.
All right, when we come back, we'll have more report from the NRA National Convention. Also from Matt Green talking about the Battle of Athens, Tennessee. We'll be back after this break. This is Armed Alabama.
The right to keep and bear arms is implicit in our understanding of ordered liberty and is deeply rooted in the traditions of our country. Heller thoroughly explored the origins of the right and showed that it was considered fundamental by those who drafted and ratified the Bill of Rights. This understanding continued during the early years of the Republic when many states adopted constitutional provisions protecting the right to keep and bear arms.
Is that Justice Alito? I don't know who that was. I think somebody swiped my Minet ball here. I was just telling Adam, the carrying capacity of any country is how many people that can support without stripping the resources, like Haiti. And you can have enough room for people, the air to renew, the water to renew, natural resources. The carrying capacity of the United States is 200 million people. So it's long since been exceeded. And when you talk about immigrants, I don't care where they're from, the best argument is, the carrying capacity has been exceeded until some new super-duper technology comes along to produce, free energy at high efficiency. We're full. And you would think that more environmentalists would be concerned about that, because where are the people going to go? They're going to have to start strip mining more, cutting down more trees without renewing them, etc. But just a factoid there.
All right, we're glad you could join us tonight on Armed Alabama. Without our advertisers and sponsors, we would not be on the air, and that's David Parnell at Palmer's Toyota, Dr. Justin Foster at Foster's Chiropractic of Tillman's Corner, David Grayson of Grayson Air Conditioning, McCoy Outdoors, of course, Ace Hardware Stores, Spring Hill and Creola locations.
And Moffett Road.
And Moffett Road, exactly.
I forgot to bring up my jigsaw that I bought at Ace in Spring Hill when I was 10 years old, because I used it over the weekend, and it still works, and I've only changed one blade, maybe two, and I had it there out ready to bring tonight, but we'll wait till next week.
All right, so if you've been paying attention, if you listen, or you're just now tuning in with us, we actually went to the NRA National Convention.
My mini ball.
Went to the NRA National Convention this past weekend. And that was held in Atlanta, Georgia, at the World Congress Center, and it was 15 acres of guns under one roof. It was really an amazing event. We got a chance to meet with lots of different companies, potential advertisers and sponsors. We hope got to see a lot of cool products, and it was just too much to see. I didn't get to maybe 15% of the whole thing. Is just a lot. It's a lot for kids to do as well. Also got to meet some really neat people within the business, some entrepreneurs, people that had startup companies. It was really neat. Got to meet one of the instructors, I think, that kind of influenced me to kind of get started to be an instructor myself, and that was Rob Pincus, who is a nationally recognized law enforcement and instructor, and has advised a lot of police departments across the U.S. and across the world. Also was contracted by the U.S. government to teach some of the individual Army platoons or groups, rather, different tactics, doing entries and stuff like that. So it was really neat to meet Rob Pincus, and he was very unassuming. And it was just like talking to anybody else.
He's one of the people I'll watch because he's
absolutely.
Legit.
And actually, speaking of watching, he has sold more videos than anybody else within the self-defense world, if you will, or in that genre. So it was really, really cool to meet him, and he was excited. Believe it or not, he was excited to hear about us, and he was excited to hear about Armed Alabama, and definitely stated that he wanted to come on the show. So we'll definitely have to hook that up and get Rob Pincus on the show here. Also got a chance to hook up with my brother from another mother, and that's Hank Strange and his lovely wife, Lola Strange, and they're YouTube personalities. You get a chance to check out their YouTube channel, Hank Strange. And they do a lot of videos about different types of firearms, what's new within the industry. So it's really neat to meet him. I met him a few years ago. We really hit it off, and been following each other ever since then.
Did you see anybody like Scooch, 00, or what's the other one? You know what I'm talking about. The Hickok, on YouTube, those two guys.
No, I didn't get a chance to see any of those. I did see Hank Strange. Like that's probably the biggest YouTube personality that I know of. But what was really cool, my wife and my daughter actually got a chance to get their picture taken with Lou Ferrigno and meet and talk with him. So that was really,
Incredible
really neat.
Hulk.
Yeah, the Incredible Hulk. He was there. He was at the. I'm sorry. Yeah, he's still a pretty good size. He's almost 70 years old, 65 or 66 years old, something like that. And so he was still pretty big, still very athletic looking, very lean. But what a magnanimous individual, very, very nice. And it was real nice to get a chance to meet and talk with him. He was at the Brownells booth, and they were giving away an AR-15 style rifle that he had designed. It was called the Mean Green, so it was pretty neat. So there was so much other things to see and do there. Just didn't get a chance to hit it all. But go to our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5, and you'll see a bunch of videos that I was able to do there. And it was really good. We've got several of them that's got almost 2,000 views on them already, and we just put them up only like a day and a half ago. So be sure and check those out. We had a chance to interview Taylor Holland, who is a NRA youth ambassador. So we got to talk about the NRA and their youth outreach program. We've met with Ashley and Marty of the Well-Armed Woman. So that was really neat. They have chapters all over the United States, and really enjoyed meeting with them. It's one of my wife's favorite groups. Different companies, small companies like Marksman Furnishings. So we spoke about those before we left for the break on the fine furnishings that they have. But they also had hidden drawers or compartments that would slide out and you can access your firearms. So it was really, really nice. TacticalWalls.com. We spoke with Chris with them, and they had like lamps and mirrors.
I've seen them on some programs.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I've seen them before, and it was really neat to see them there. And they gave some really good demonstrations of the products on our videos that we had. Another really good, neat item was Brock Box. So if you're going to the range and you're bringing multiple firearms, this was a really neat box. Or if you're into camping or anything else like that, it was waterproof. It had really heavy latches. It was made of a very heavy polymer. And so you can store multiple firearms in there. It had different sections within it. You can portion it off or whatever. It was really neat. Of course, we met with Steyr Arms. And
polymer is nice plastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And so we met with Steyr Arms as well. And their Fine Guns derivative, I guess, is Merkel USA. So really neat to meet with those guys because they're right here in Alabama with us. Gum Creek, they had a really neat product. It was a holster that would latch underneath your dash, right underneath your steering wheel. And it did make a difference what size dash it was or what kind of vehicle. You could make it adjust to fit
Real
that.
Important.
Yep. And I met another group of guys. These guys were hilarious. Buffalo Cartridge Company. You're going to be seeing
I've actually got some of those.
Do you got some of those?
These are extra oomph.
Yeah.
I got
So they're going to
some
be
plus
having
P pluses.
Yeah, they're going to have their own show coming up on the Outdoor Channel, so that's going to be really neat to watch. Those going to be a reality-based TV show, and of course, I would be remiss if I didn't get by the judge's favorite company, and that's Beretta USA. Spoke with those guys, and they ran us through their newest striker fire pistol, the APX. So go on our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio FM Talk 1065, and go to our Facebook page, and you can see all those videos there that we did. Nice group of people they got a chance to meet and see. So be sure and go and check out our videos if you haven't yet, and like and share those videos on your Facebook page, if you will, from our weekend's travel to the NRA National Convention in Atlanta, Georgia.
And I got to congratulate Chase. He did a great promo for new visitors to the YouTube channel. And I guess I hadn't seen it because I'm not a new visitor. So that's pretty neat. And I see Paul, and I suspect that if we got enough time, what time we got? Let's take Paul. Paul, you're on there. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, what's happening?
Not much. Should have come on in, Paul.
Well, hey, I just wanted to call
Anytime.
tell you I was at the show, too.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Somehow I didn't see you walking around in there with all those people, but I was there.
Isn't it inconsiderate for all those other people to come?
They all got in our way, Paul.
And Judge, I did see, now my mind's blank, the tall guy, Hickok or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Him.
Yeah, good.
But I met him and talked with him. I was eating dinner at
Hickok 45
restaurant.
Yeah.
I went to
Is he
Ted
nice?
Turner's
Because
restaurant.
he seems like a nice guy.
He is. I mean, and but you're right. A lot of people watch his videos. I think he has a couple of million followers or whatever. I mean, he's
right. That other guy's name is, I guess you pronounce it, Sootchoo, Scooch. And he's got a lot of good stuff, and he's from South Carolina, I think.
okay.
He's got a lot of good stuff on there, too.
I did get to see Trump. I got to go watch that.
It sounds like you had a good trip.
That was fun, and we actually, Saturday night, we also went to the Hank Jr. concert.
Oh,
That was a wild time.
Yeah.
I heard it was. I didn't get up there till Friday morning, so I missed all the good stuff.
But it was fun. Met Oliver North. That was pretty cool to me.
Oh, yeah. We should have made you a correspondent.
We should have.
If we had a portable camera.
That was the first NRA expo I'd ever been to.
Well, Paul, the next year's is in Dallas.
Yep.
So
right.
Maybe they'll start meeting in friendlier territory instead of, they've met some places that were
I agree.
unfriendly.
Well, maybe they'll meet somewhere where the interstate is not destroyed.
Yeah, I know. That was a freak one, wasn't it? Strange.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, we're up against a break. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in about 10 days. And thank you so much for having us at Three Brothers Shooting Range in Stapleton.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Look forward to it.
All right. Bye.
We'll be back after the break with Matt Green and more of Armed Alabama.
Undoubtedly, some think that the Second Amendment is outmoded in a society where our standing army is the pride of our nation, where well-trained police forces provide personal security, and where gun violence is a serious problem. That is perhaps debatable. But what is not debatable is that it is not the role of this court to pronounce the Second Amendment extinct.
Now that is Justice Nino Scalia, the late Justice Scalia. God rest his soul. Be hard to replace him. Sometimes if you all want to be enlightened, educated, whatever, watch it maybe an hour and a half long interview with him on some of these various sites like the Federalist site. Just go to YouTube. And even better, watch one with Clarence Thomas. You can see the humanity in him, the sincerity in him. I'll tell you, Thomas, to me, is a more of an originalist, more of a conservative than Scalia. Scalia's position is kind of, well, those things have happened. Let's not rock the boat. The water's under the bridge. Thomas is, if those decisions are wrong, and I think a lot of them are, we need to change them and get back to basics and decide them the way they ought to be. Scalia is, well, that would cause too much of a disruption. And, there were a lot of decisions back, especially around the New Deal era, that were absolutely wrongly decided for political reasons. And Thomas has at least the idea, the guts to say, it's not our job to decide how much is going to disrupt society. Our job is to rule on the law and the Constitution and not get into this social engineering or how it's going to affect, every person out there. It's to rule on what we've got before us. So I think it's interesting. I listened to about 3 or 4 of those, and he doesn't have the woe is me. I came from a poor background, and I've got a chip on my shoulder. It's none of that. It's just really interesting. I want to give you a quote before I introduce Matt Green, who is here to talk about an interesting subject. And if I can get this real quick, and it's in one of these, I will be able to, and I don't know that it's in this one. We'll give it during the break. Matt, we've talked about before, and I was going to give the Judge Kaczynski quote. I could give Blackstone just as well, that, self-defense and bearing arms are just kind of intertwined. And one of the reasons that both Blackstone and Judge Kaczynski gave for the right to keep and bear arms, which of course isn't a right given to us, it's a right we're born with, is, and of course Thomas Jefferson enunciated this in the Declaration of Independence, is if the government is ever seized or becomes despotic, and it's laid out in the Declaration of Independence, the citizens or residents not only have a right but a duty to do something about it. This didn't only happen in 1776. This happened in 1946. Where did it happen? And I'll tell you frankly, until 5 years ago, I knew nothing of it.
It happened in McMinn County, Tennessee, particularly in the county seat, a little town called Athens. And in the wake of the end of World War II, GIs returned home after fighting abroad in the Pacific and European theaters and basically all over the world. They returned home to a government gone wild.
And my theory of that was a lot of the good guys of prime age had left, so the trash came out of the woodwork and opened up the bars, the gambling joints, the prostitution places, and they kind of like Phoenix City, they just took over.
That's exactly right. They were all Democrats. They were swept in 1936 with as New Deal Democrats. They came in rode in on the coattails of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They became entrenched in local and statewide politics and basically came to dominate the electoral process. And anyone that stood in their way or in the direct path of their acquisition of power were either met with the death in some instances, blackjacks, billy clubs, threats, gunshots, intimidation, you name it.
And, of course, a prime example, I'm sure it was overly dramatized, and it was brought forward not in the 40s, but was Walking Tall.
Yeah. There have been several attempts to dramatize, like you said, what happened. Tonight, I'm going to share what I've been able to uncover.
Truth is better than fiction.
Right. And this is an incredible story. And it was never taught in any history book I've seen or read. And generally, it's a chapter that in history that many people would rather not share because it once again brings us back to basics. The natural right of self-resistance to tyrannical government, which is
let me give you the quote. Yeah. This is Judge Alex Kaczynski, He was actually born in Romania and escaped from communism when he was a child with his parents. So he knew where he was coming from. But he's still on the nutty ninth, but he was appointed by Reagan, one of the few conservatives. He stated in an opinion, all too many of the great tragedies of history, Stalin's atrocities, the killing fields of Cambodia, the Holocaust, but to name a few, were perpetrated by armed troops against unarmed populations. Many well could have been avoided or mitigated had the perpetrators known their intended victims were equipped with a rifle and 20 bullets apiece, as the Militia Act required here. If a few hundred Jewish fighters in the Warsaw Ghetto could hold off the Wehrmacht for almost a month with only a handful of weapons, 6 million Jews armed with rifles could not so easily have been herded in cattle calls. My excellent colleagues have forgotten these bitter lessons of history. The prospects of tyranny may not grab the headlines the way vivid stories of gun crimes routinely do, but few saw the Third Reich coming until it was too late. The Second Amendment is a doomsday provision, one designed for those exceptionally rare circumstances where all other rights have failed, where the government refuses to stand for re-election and silences those who protest, where courts have lost the courage to oppose or can find no one to enforce their decrees. However improbable these contingencies may seem today, facing them unprepared is a mistake a free people get to make only once. Fortunately, the framers were wise enough to entrench the right of the people to keep and bear arms within our constitutional structure. The purpose and importance of that right, while the purpose and importance of that right was still fresh in their minds, and they spelled it out clearly so that it would not be forgotten. Despite the panel's mighty struggle to erase these words, they remain, and the people themselves can read what they say plainly enough. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Excellent opinion there. But that's what you had there. So tell us what prompted this.
Well, it starts with an interesting political figure, a guy named E.H. Crump. He was the former mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, and by the time 1946 had rolled around, he had pretty much locked down the state, and they called him Boss Crump. He was a significant political player who was a kingmaker. In 43 years, this is a quote that was attributed to him around the time of the Battle of Athens. In 43 years, I have been elected 23 times myself and assisted in 79 general elections, a total of 102 elections without a defeat.
Assisted. That means stolen.
Well, that's good. That's very good. So it's code. You're right.
Yeah.
But the way he fits in to this picture is that two of the political power brokers in McMinn County that were behind the reason for the Battle of Athens, were, for lack of a better word, his minions. You had a state senator, sitting state senator at the time in McMinn County, a guy by the name of Paul Cantrell, and a county sheriff of McMinn County named Pat Mansfield. Okay. Cantrell had been the former sheriff, but he was timed out because he couldn't run again for that position, so he naturally switched to state senator. Well, now that his state senator spot had lapsed, he was now running in the 1946 election in McMinn County for sheriff once again, and Mansfield was running for his state senate spot
during the Depression or Prohibition.
Right. So they're both political allies. They had basically these two figures had basically oversaw years of stealing elections and electoral fraud. They had trampled all over the rights of the citizens, and their forces or their political minions had been behind at least one GI being shot and killed by one of their deputies. A sailor on home for leave was shot and was killed as well. They engaged in all types of money fee grabbing is what today we call it civil asset forfeiture, but back then they called it fee grabbers. But anyway, we're up
didn't run and call the FBI.
That's right, because back then the federal authorities didn't have much jurisdiction over state and local matters. But we're up against a break, so when we come back,
continue after the break.
We'll talk about the fee grabbers.
More of this interesting story. Remember, our phone number is 343-0106. any questions at all, but we'd like to kind of confine them to this story because it's mighty interesting. We'll be back in just a moment.
All right, welcome back to Armed Alabama. We've still got plenty of show left. We have with us in the studio Matt Green, and Matt Green is here. We're discussing the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, and it's an extremely interesting story. A lot of people don't know about it, and it is where the local people got together. This was after World War II, and they used firearms to dispel basically a despotic local government and took their government back during the election cycle. So we're glad to have Matt Green here, and Matt Green is telling us all about what transpired during that time.
And then I got discharged teaching jungle warfare. The war was over. And all them dates was in there if you want to look them up, read it. And then I went home, and on the bus, I could come in there, and when I got off the bus, there was 4 deputies standing there, looking over all the servicemen that got off the bus. I thought that was kind of odd. If they found one was drinking just a beer or two, they grabbed him, put him in jail, and took money off from him. I asked some of them boys out at the bus station, servicemen, I said, yeah, I said, they get everybody. I said, they do? He said, yeah. I said, hellfire. I said, them boys go over there and fight that war and fight them battle and come back here and they can't do nothing. I said, my God. I said, that's awful. Got a bunch of thugs in here arrested. That's just the way I thought,
That was Bill White, a young veteran who'd returned from World War II upon reaching home and seeing his town overrun by these government thugs. Bill was just a young GI. He'd been wounded twice, fought in Guadalcanal and Tarawa, had 2 Purple Hearts, and fought for freedom around the world to come back home to be basically all the GIs, which he was a member of, this group, with the boot of tyrannical government on his neck. What he was referring to was the fee grabbers, the system that these Democratic McMinn County party officials, including the sheriff and the state senator that we talked about earlier, had enacted. The McMinn County Sheriff's Office received fees for every person that was booked, incarcerated, and released. The more the arrest, the more money for the sheriff. Deputies, as Mr. White was talking about, boarded buses and arrested innocent, sleepy-eyed passengers and charged $16 in
just people coming through town.
Right, under the charge of disorderly conduct, public just ridiculous. On some nights, they said that the Athens City Jail had 50 to 60 arrestees. They said that they'd have this person with the court who was it was a lawyer, probably affiliated with the sheriff, who was what they called the informer, who informed the accused that it would be in their best interest to just plead guilty, pay the fine, and move on. In the 4 years, the sheriff...
I've heard that before.
In the 4 years, Sheriff Mansfield, in the 4 years leading up to the Battle of Athens, he had netted about $104,000 in extra fees, in addition to his $5,000 salary. For the last 10 years leading up to the Battle of Athens, he had made $300,000. So he was making about
46 money, too.
Right. It was about $25,000 a year in 1946 money. When adjusted for inflation, that would be, in today's money, $334,891.40. So it was a significant cash cow that it basically was borne by the brunt of the citizens and the GIs that had returned home. The McMinn County Sheriff's Office and their local law enforcement, people that were loyal to the Democrats and to the Crump forces engaged in rampant election fraud. They counted ballots outside the presence of the opposition. Deads were voted. Voter intimidation. People were beat up. Violence, threats, and assaults were more the order of the day. I had
that in the '94 Hooper contest.
It wasn't just the sheriff's office that was filled with these thugs. the McMinn County courts, that was kind of the last refuge for the Republicans. They saw what was going on with the election fraud, and they directed the county to purchase voting machines. Well, the Cantrell Democrats responded by passing a bill abolishing the court, and they sold the machines to save the county money. You heard that before. The Department of Justice investigated the McMinn County political machine and defendants who had misappropriated WPA funds right in the years leading up to the Battle of Athens. They actually were able to get an indictment returned. A jury convicted the defendants. However, the U.S. District Judge in Chattanooga, who was a loyal Democrat to the Crump team, fined him, the defendant now. He was looking at a range of punishment up to a $1,000 fine and a year in the federal penitentiary. The sentence from the U.S. District Judge in Chattanooga was 1 cent in lieu of cost, and sentenced the defendant after conviction to remain in custody of the United States Marshal for 1 hour. Okay? The U.S. District Judge Leslie Darr, who was an FDR nominee, by the way, he was the one that tried many of the McMinn County Democrats charged with election fraud, and it was clear that there was no real consequences once brought up on charges of election fraud.
That corruption was really widespread.
Absolutely. The Democrats then introduced a bill, an act to redistrict McMinn County. They reduced the number of voting precincts from 23 to 12, easier to manipulate and monitor and control. They reduced the justices of the peace from 14 to 7. The bill was signed into law by Tennessee Governor Prentice Cooper in February of 1941. In effect, the opposition Republican Party was now eviscerated, and there was no really opposition to the Democrats.
Geographically, where is this in Tennessee?
It's in East Tennessee. It's not too far from.
That was a Republican area.
Right.
Yep.
Right. It was a Republican area.
That's not too far from where I'm from.
Exactly. And they were unstoppable. They had purged the legislature and the city council, the county commission, and the courts of all their political enemies. So when the GIs get home, they see what's going on, and it's incredible. What they do is they meet secretly, and there's a group of GIs, and it's a group of Republicans and Democrats. It's really a nonpartisan group that they get together, and they have to meet in secret. You have to. They met in initially several of the first meetings. You had to show a discharge button, a discharge paperwork from the service that you served in, or a membership in a veterans organization to even get into the meeting.
I'm sure they were risking their lives,
absolutely,
and families' lives,
their sacred honor, fortunes.
Exactly.
They held a mass meeting in May of 1946. They nominated a guy named Knox Henry, who was a GI wounded in the North African campaign. He ran a local filling station. He was a Republican. They nominated Frank Carmichael as a county trustee to run for that. He was a GI who was badly wounded in St. Louis, also a Republican. They nominated also several Democrats, George Painter as a county clerk, and a guy named W.E. Hamby, who ran a local dry cleaners, ran as a Democrat. Basically, in several days, in the days leading up to this mass meeting, the Republicans decided not to field a candidate. They said that it would be best to put their candidates in with a nonpartisan GI group, and that's what they did, which is kind of incredible if you think about it. The Republicans basically stood down and joined with the GI forces, and you had Democrats and Republicans run together on the same ticket against these Democrats that were corrupt. Are we coming up against a break?
We got about 2 minutes.
Okay. One thing, during 2 days after the GIs met, the Republicans had their meeting, and that's when they decided they were going to pitch in with the GIs. And one of the Republicans stood up at their meeting when they were decided that they were going to put their hats in with the GIs. This is what one of them said: "We enter a conflict with desperate enemies who have sought to subject us to tyranny and oppression. We feel a deep sense of obligation and now seek in measure to repay. Young men who have fought against oppression abroad will continue that fight for honesty and decency at home." So there you go. You have the GIs now on a ticket. The GIs, they're not naive. They know that they're going to have to fight fire with fire, and that these deputies are going to control the voting process. So they reach out to get help. They request the help of the governor. He doesn't respond. They request help from the United States Attorney General. He doesn't respond to help them. They even seek assistance from the local FBI field office near where they are in Knoxville, and they refuse to help without approval from Washington. So basically, the GIs were on their own.
Well, we'll pick it up after the top of the hour break. A fascinating story, and folks out there, we'll take calls and questions, text on any firearms-related question, but especially this Second Amendment, why we have the right to keep and bear arms. This is Judge Rusty Johnston urging you to stay tuned and tune in on Facebook Live. That is Armed Alabama Radio, FM 1065, where you can watch us. We'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of Armed Alabama. Glad you can join us and glad you hung with us. If you're still there, we have got a big show here. Give us a call, 251-343-0106, and we are broadcasting live on Facebook. So you can go to our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5, and we are simulcasting live on Facebook as well as the radio. Also, be sure and check out our YouTube channel, Armed Alabama. And we have our website, armedalabama.com. You can go there and you can sign up for our next class, armedalabama.com/classes. Our next class will be May 13th. And that will be a concealed carry home defense class. And you can go to our website there and sign up and pay all on our website. It's going to be a good class. It'll be Saturday, May 13th. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. And you can get all your information from our website and sign up. So we definitely, if you've been putting off taking a concealed carry home defense class, and this is a class to take for you. Also, if you are a resident of Florida, we have a lot of people listening from Florida, from Pensacola, Cantonment. The certification for this class meets and exceeds Florida law requirements for a concealed carry permit. So if you're interested in taking the class and you live in Florida, by all means, just take that quick drive from Pensacola, Cantonment to Three Brothers Arms, and we'll be glad to have you in our class. If you remember, we stated last week and previous week that we were going to be at the NRA National Convention this past weekend. We had a great time there. I got a chance to meet with a lot of people there at the NRA National Convention in Atlanta, Georgia. It was held at the World Congress Center. 15 acres was under roof of nothing but guns and gear. It was an amazing event. We were there trying to meet with companies for advertising and sponsorships. We got a chance to see really cool products and stuff like that. So you can go to our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5, and we have lots of videos there that we had made of different products that we had seen that I thought was really cool, really neat, and made some quick videos just to kind of highlight those different products and give you a sense of what the show was like. There was a lot of people there, but we got a chance to meet with Taylor Holland. Was there representing the NRA Youth Ambassador, so that she was there to as a proponent to young people being involved in shooting sports. Got a chance to meet with Ashley and Marty of the Well Armed Woman. Good conversation with them. You can check out that video on our Facebook page. Really neat furnishings company. It was Marksman Furnishings, and they have fine furnishings there for gun owners. And Ainsley is there demonstrating their products. And it was really nice furniture, but it was hidden compartments within those furniture where you can store your firearm, magazines, ammunition, and whatever. And also tacticalwalls.com. We had met with those guys and get to see their products. And they had everything from mirrors to lamps that go inside your home. But they had hidden compartments to where you could store pistols or magazines or what have you. Some interesting storage boxes, and it was brockbox.com. And they had some really neat stuff. Also got a chance to meet with Steyr Arms and Merkel USA, which is their kind of fine guns division. Buffalo Cartridge Company. Those guys were really neat. They have their own show. It's going to be coming out soon on the Outdoor Channel. It was neat to meet and talk with those guys. Judge, you said earlier that you had some of their cartridges that you've used.
Yeah, sure do.
And we got a chance to meet with Judge's favorite company, Beretta USA. We got to speak with them about their newest striker fire polymer pistol, and that was the APX, and the one that they shown was in 9mm. Was really neat, had some really nice features on that firearm, and it was made definitely for concealed carry, home defense, to really a lot of features on that firearm to allow for faster target acquisition if you had a failure, to be able to clear that failure a lot faster. So it's a really neat striker fire pistol. So definitely go to our Facebook page, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5, and you can see different videos that we have from this past weekend's NRA National Convention.
Well, let's get back to Matt Green, who was telling us about the Battle of Athens, Tennessee. And I was just looking at the Declaration of Independence because I put out I guess you call it a tweet about it. And as Jefferson wrote, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evidences a design to reduce them, the population, to absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of the colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of absolute tyranny over the states. And so that's what he's talking about.
I thought you'd hear that. Yes, we have guns in order to control the government.
And where have assault rifles been useful in controlling the size or direction or policy of the United States government in our history?
Well, the Brown Bess rifle was used to win our independence. The militiamen's...
From the British?
Yes.
Let's talk about our government.
The militiamen used their militia rifles under Andy Jackson to defend New Orleans against the British. So
against
we
the British.
Do have a history.
When have guns been useful in curtailing the power or purpose of the federal government?
Athens, Tennessee, 1946. Townsmen rose up against corrupt government and threw them out at the point of a gun.
That was Larry Pratt on Chris Matthews talking about the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, which was the last certified armed engagement between organized citizens and its corrupt local and tyrannical government, which is what this story we're talking about is tonight.
I don't think Matthews believed him.
Yeah, I don't think he did either.
He was definitely caught flat-footed. If you watch that video, and like the judge said, Matthews, I don't think believed him. He probably went right after the show and researched it.
I'm sure he did.
So basically, after which we discussed in 1946, these GIs who've been fighting all over the world come back to their home in McMinn County, Tennessee. It's in East Tennessee, and it's particularly Athens, Tennessee, which is the county seat, to find that their local government has been overtaken by armed thugs who have stolen elections, bullied people, killed some of the GIs, and engaged in a systematic scheme of oppressing and taking money from the people and basically taking the right to a free election away and the right to a free counted vote away from the people. So the GI these GIs meet, and they basically Republicans and Democrats. It was a bipartisan group. They form what they call a nonpartisan GI ticket. They advertise. These young men, this is kind of the things that they run in the newspaper, that these young men fought and won a war for good government. They know what it takes and what it means to have a clean government, and they are energetic enough, honest enough, and intelligent enough to give us good, clean government. Your vote will be counted as cast. That was their promise to the people. Now, Bill White, who has been quoted here earlier tonight, we played some audio clips, was one of the young GIs who was helping make sure that the rule of law would be followed that day, August 1st, 1946. When we come back, we're up against a break now. I'll tell you what transpired on that day and how it forever changed the rule of law and politics in East Tennessee.
We'll be right back with Armed Alabama.
Dave was running around 4 or 5 at a time in cars, grabbing up every GI they could find and trying to get that money off from them. You see, they was thief robbers. They went on the salary back in the day.
They got fees by arrests.
Yeah, fees by arrest. And I watched a lot of that going on. And the more I watched them, the sicker I got. And then the GIs they killed the GI too. Shot him and killed him. And they'd been killing people long. And we decided that we'd get together. Election's coming up, you know.
That was Bill White, a young veteran who just returned from Guadalcanal. He was in the 1st Marine Division, wounded twice, 2 Purple Hearts, a war hero. And he gets back to his hometown of Athens, Tennessee, and sees the local government doing this to his people. And it's what prompted the GIs to get together to form a nonpartisan league, a ballot with these people for good government to fight this tyranny.
It's kind of like Roosevelt said about Tom Dewey, we're not fighting the Nazis abroad, only to elect one here at home. In the months in the weeks and the month or two before this, in May into August, the election was in August. The GIs, once they feel they announce the candidates for political office, they seek help from the federal government. They seek help from the courts. They know that the election is going to be stolen if it's going to be run as any other election has been under the local political bosses, Paul Mansfield and Cottrell, the power brokers in McMinn County. They know that that's going to happen. You got to fight fire with fire, and there were a lot of GIs that didn't want to do that, but there were some GIs that said you're going to have to do it if you're serious about winning this election. There were several ominous signs that before the Battle of Athens that things were on the precipice. There was a United States representative from the 2nd Congressional District, which is where McMinn County was. In a month before the Battle of Athens, he stood up on the House floor and gave a speech to the whole United States House of Representatives. This is what he said. Neither a deputy sheriff nor a policeman has the right to hold an election in Tennessee while armed. Neither a deputy sheriff nor a policeman in Tennessee has any more right to be armed with a pistol or a blackjack to intimidate or assault a voter than a robber or a burglar has to be armed to use a pistol or blackjack in the perpetration of a robbery or burglary. Under the laws of Tennessee, the citizens of McMinn County have the right and the power to enforce an honest election on Thursday, August 1st, 1946. He knows what's going to happen. I mean, he's warning the local and federal officials that if they don't do something, something terrible is going to happen. He gave several speeches like this. He told the federal judge who fined that defendant who was from McMinn County, the Democrat who had been involved in election fraud, fined him a penny and sentenced him to a hour in the custody of the U.S. Marshal. This is what Jennings said about that. By placing his blessing on the convicted McMinn County election fraud, the defendants, the judge, Judge Darr, had told the people of McMinn County who had been robbed of their votes, blackjacked, and driven from the polls at the point of a pistol to go to hell. He also said that more. And this is another speech he gave on the House floor. I mean, he's a Republican, so he's kind of crying out in the wilderness here. More than 400 of the flower of the young manhood of McMinn and McMinn and Monroe counties, are now in the armed service of the U.S. on every battlefront, everywhere in the world. While the boys from these two splendid counties are facing the guns of the Germans, the Italians, and the Japs in defense of the liberties of their country, their fathers... I'm afraid you can't use that word. Would you remove that?
Their fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters in McMinn and Monroe counties, when they go to the ballot box to vote, must face the guns and must be beaten by the blackjacks of the coterie of criminals who have usurped government in these two counties. So we're coming up to the election day. Okay, one of the deputies, one of the Bloody McMinn, they called him Bloody McMinn deputies, when a machine political operative was a guy named Thomas Burkett. They called him a revenuer. He was renowned for his ability to track down people, moonshiners, relentlessly hunted moonshiners. He had no less than 7 justifiable killings under his belt. He was also the former McMinn County Sheriff and the McMinn County Circuit Clerk, and he was actually running under the Democratic machine with Cantrell. During the campaign, he made a political blunder, referred to the GIs as, quote, just a bunch of kids. And that really kind of was a turning point in the election because now he's insulted the service of the GIs in a way that kind of resonated with the local people. So the election day is August 1st, 1946. As the dawn broke that morning, there were several ominous signs. For the first time in downtown Athens, the merchants announced the shops were going to be closed under the pretense of allowing employees to vote. The city of Athens mayor, Mr. Paul Walker, announced he would be vacationing on Election Day and would not be in town. Sheriff Mansfield notably announced in the newspaper, this is what he put in the newspaper ad, in order for every citizen, now this is the same Mansfield who's the head of the Democratic machine, who is the state senator running for the sheriff position now. In order for every citizen to cast their vote as they see fit in safety, I will have several hundred deputies patrolling the county. And a lot of these deputies, according to contemporary accounts, appeared to be freshly released from prison. Lots of ruffians. They called them a gang of plug uglies, is what they referred to them as.
Special deputies.
Yes, and and many of them were from out of state, particularly from Georgia. And to tell you just how bad the corruption was, the day before the election, two men were arrested in nearby Bradley County. They were headed to McMinn County with 72 pints of what they called election whiskey to be used in McMinn County. Both men were carrying deputy sheriff badge cards, and one even had a badge. A paper ran the story, and that, to their credit, ran the story. Apparently, the GIs had some good intel and tipped off local law enforcement about the vehicle and pulled them over. But that's the kind of stuff they were doing to bring in whiskey to bribe voters. So that day, several precincts in Athens is really ground zero.
It'd take a pretty good whiskey to bribe me. If you get at least up to an early times or something.
Sure. Most of the action in the corruption and the election fraud occurred in the city of Athens that day, the county seat, particularly in two precincts. One was the 11th precinct. There were 6 Cantrell men, 3 with firearms working the precinct. There was a Cantrell deputy by the name of Wendy Wise who denied an African-American, Tom Gillespie, the right to vote. They held 2 GIs hostage and gave instructions to their underlings, if you have to kill them, just don't let them out. Veterans had to jump through the front window and a plate glass window onto the street, and the deputies nearly engaged in a shootout as the townspeople look on. That deputy Wise chases the GIs out, brandishing a pistol, yelling, "You GD SOB, I'll kill you." One woman was heard to scream, "Oh God, here it comes!" Luckily for the GIs, they had lots of folks, townspeople, that they just blended in, and Wendy Wise did not shoot them. Gillespie, who had the African American who everyone liked in town, he was an old farmer who was denied the right to vote, was told by the Mansfield deputy, "Where do you think you're going? You can't vote here, and don't give me no sass. You talking to a white man." Then they shot him. Clearly, it's the Cantrell forces are losing control of the situation. Then they shut down one of the precincts early and took the ballot to the to the city jail. Won't let anybody in. And when the GIs objected, who were poll watching, they were arrested and taken along with the ballots to the jail and locked up. There was another precinct, 12th precinct, called Dixie Cafe. A Cantrell deputy, an election judge, assaulted 2 GI poll watchers and had them arrested. One of the GI poll watchers, 2 of them, a guy named Bob Harrell and Leslie Dooley, were both highly decorated veterans. Leslie Dooley had lost his arm in the North Africa campaign. He witnessed these voting violations. They were letting minors vote, and they were paying cash to other voters. He had the temerity to object and was incarcerated. When one voter was not listed as a registered voter in the precinct and attempted to vote, Harrell attempted to stop the voter. A Mansfield deputy then struck him across the head with a blackjack, kicked him in the face, ordered the precinct closed. Deputies were armed with shotguns and then marched these GIs who they'd taken captive along with the ballot box, along with a procession of guards through the town square to the jail in Athens. And you had several GIs who were now held hostage in the jail with these ballot boxes that were not counted in front of the other side. While all this was going on, several veterans were watching what was going on, these GIs, at a place called S&K Garage. It was named after 2 local townspeople, a guy named Stapleton and Kennedy. They called it SNK. It was a tire shop, and this was directly across the street from the GI headquarters. And they got tired of it, and two of the GIs, these these workers that were over there, went over and disarmed a couple of the deputies. Well, the deputies sent more deputies, and eventually multiple deputies were then taken were taken custody of by the GIs. The G-Arms disarmed and captured about 7 of them. They took them out of town, stripped them of their clothes, and tied them up to trees in the woods and abandoned them. They know what's going to happen. They're going to go to
get to the shooting now.
Yeah, they go to the jail. It's getting to sundown, and they know that they're going to try the Cantrell forces, and the Democrats are going to try to steal the election and count the ballots. They surround the jail. We have people, all these GIs, probably about 100 or more, surround the jail. And what they do is, before they surround the jail, let me take a step back. This Bill White, who we've been quoting, led them to the National Guard Armory, where they were let in and basically
here we go.
Took 2 Thompson submachine guns, 60 30-06 Enfield rifles.
Okay, let's step into a break and finish that point up there. We got to step into a break. We'll be back with more of Armed Alabama in 2 minutes after this is the bottom of the hour break. Remember our phone number 251-343-0106, and we're on Facebook Live at Armed Alabama Radio 1065 on Facebook. Welcome back to Armed Alabama. And before we get to Matt Green, I want to thank and talk about one of our wonderful sponsors. That is the hometown, home-owned Ace Hardware stores in Spring Hill. That's the Spring Hill Plaza Shopping Center at Old Shell and McGregor. The Moffett Road Ace out on Moffett Road, and the Creola Ace Hardware and Lumber. And all of those Ace Hardware stores, I'll give you, for instance, I was doing some pretty strange work where I needed some chain, I needed cable, all these odd things. And I could go, and I did, to Ace, and buy, U-bolts, for instance. You couldn't buy them anywhere else in town because I just checked on websites, and, you didn't know whether they had them in the stores or not. It was very confusing. I could go up there at Ace, and number one, I got a, I guess you'd call it a snatch block. Made in USA, first of all. You know what? It cost more, but it wasn't made in China, and the weight capacity on it was 2 to 3 times what I could get at any other store in Mobile. And when you're lifting something up, that made me feel a little better. So, because, you're buying a snatch block lifting up a couple of 1,000 pounds, something that's $11.99 made in China, just made me a little nervous. But all of the hoisting stuff, the chain, the lift, they got it all at Ace. Now, I needed some, of course, Rust-Oleum. Always need that because everything I have that I leave outside, I imagine that rust. And so I needed that. So, and in spite of the fact, I'll put it on me, that I had some, these irritating people that stuff flies out of their pickup trucks into the highway, scatters all over. I needed some tie-down material, which I got, but due to my own incompetence, I didn't tie it down properly, and I had a load of scaffolding fly out on Highway 45. But good for the drivers that avoided all that, especially me for waving them off as I saved my scaffolding. But all of those Ace Hardware stores, first of all, their prices are as good as any of the big box stores. They've got everything you need, or they can order it for you. And get by and see them. Tell them we sent you. They're great people, and want to keep your money here in Mobile. That's Ace up in Spring Hill at Old Shell and McGregor, or out on Moffett Road, or in Creola, where they tend to have their lumber, heavy-duty lumber, in stock there in a warehouse behind them, your 4x6s, 4x4s, and all of that.
And they're Joe Abdullah approved. So
that's right. Joe Abdullah has approved them. Now, Matt is getting ready to tell us about the gun battle. And one of the guns that was popular during World War I is the M1 carbine.
World War II.
World War II. Where am I? M1 carbine. And, you don't have to be satisfied with and they're coming, pretty old M1 carbine that is refurbished. There are several manufacturers now, Carr is one of them, that make new M1 carbines. So you get all the quality manufacturing of a new M1 carbine, and there's self-defense ammo for those, very little recoil, but, warranties, and that's the kind of gun you can get down at our favorite gun store and the best in this area, McCoy's. And I can't think there are a couple of manufacturers of them. There's a fine gun. My daughter has one, nice and wooden, no recoil. And for people that are you don't want to put a shotgun in a slightly built person's hands. Put that M1 carbine. It's not going to scare them. And get you that Hornady critical defense ammo they make for it. It's the equivalent of about a .40 caliber. So don't let anybody tell you they shot somebody in Indochina 14 times with one and they kept running away because they were smoking some of that wacky weed when they were doing that then. But McCoy's...
They got some of that opium over there.
Yeah. I'm sure McCoy's, they don't have them in stock. They can get them for you as they can anything. Talked about holsters last week. That's very important. Look on our website. We have a complete... story about holsters. You can get any of those down at McCoy's. If you don't have the right holster, that's as important as having the right handgun. McCoy's is located on Spring Hill Avenue, just west of I-65, where old K&B was, and the Spring Hill Avenue Shopping Center. Go by and see them, see Wesley Parks, or any of the folks there can help you. And also tell them we sent you. And if you buy a handgun, you get a discount certificate there for one of our classes. Now, tell us about the firearms, Matt. You may have a clip to play for us. I'm not sure.
Before you left to go to World War II, had Paul Cantrell already, had he been in office?
Yeah, he'd been sheriff. They picked Paul Cantrell up to run against the GIs because Paul Cantrell was a well-known, popular man in the county, and he was a Democrat too, another Democrat administration, and he'd won 3 elections in a row for deputy, and then he was a United States Senator when this was going on. They run him. He was a United States Senator. I mean, not a United States, but a state senator. And he was very popular, and they thought if anybody could beat the GIs, it'd be him. So they run him against the GIs.
Okay, so we're talking about Paul Cantrell and Mansfield, the two Democrats who are probably most responsible for the election day fraud. On August 1st, 1946, we left off where the Cantrell and Mansfield political machine had shut down several of the polling places early, taken the ballots to the jail, and in the process had assaulted several GI poll watchers and taken them hostage. This prompted the local GIs to retaliate, and we left off. We talked about how the several deputies had been disarmed by the GIs and driven out of the city and stripped and tied to trees in the woods. And now the GIs send a message to get the word out, boys. We're going to get these ballots and have an honest election.
Now, if you're just now joining us, Matt is talking about the Battle of Athens, 1946, and that's Athens, Tennessee.
So we have hundreds of people now, GIs and their family and friends, coming in. They had previously, earlier in the evening, raided the local National Guard armory and seized firearms. So they surround the local jail where the Democrats have taken the ballot boxes, and they're holding some of the other GIs hostage. The GIs were yelling, "Come out! Bring out the ballot boxes! Give up the ballot boxes!" And the deputies inside were heard to yell, "Are you the law in McMinn County?" And the GIs reportedly said, "There ain't no damn law in McMinn County." And then the fighting ensued. Shots were fired from both sides. The fighting went on for hours. as the fighting in the early morning hours of August the 2nd, the deputies weren't coming out. So
they're holed up in the jail with ballots.
Exactly, with the ballots and with the hostages. And there were some talk that the hostages, the GIs, may be shot and killed. And that's where some of the threats that were issued. Finally, the military training kicked in with the GIs, and when all else failed, they dynamited the jail.
You either dynamite the jail or you use it when you go fishing.
That's right. During all this time when the shooting and fighting was going on, one of the local Democrats, who was also the Speaker of the House of the state legislature, called the governor, Jim Nance McCord, to call in the National Guard. There was information that the National Guard was mobilized. Brigadier General Hilton Butler, an adjutant general of the Tennessee State Guard, was told to mobilize. However, with the prospect of deployment the National Guard consisting of many GIs, and the Brigadier General sensing and smelling that something political was up, never came into town that night, was quoted as saying, "My obligations are to protect the life and property, not political interests."
Whoa.
National Guard stood down and never responded to Athens that night. After they dynamited the jail, 34 special deputies were then arrested. They came out with their hands up. The GIs took them into custody and paraded them around the town square. When the GIs walked into the jail, they found multiple blank ballots that were going to be presumably marked for the Cantrell people. They marched the deputies that they took into custody through the town square that night. Several were assaulted, and they were actually, to their credit, the deputies were taken. The GIs took the deputies back, locked them up in the jail, and protected them from the crowds. That night, later that morning, automobiles belonging to deputy sheriffs were overturned in the streets. Cars were smashed. It was getting close to being anarchy. However, no one died. The GIs saved the deputies. The GIs saved the deputies from the mob who were wanting to visit physical harm upon them. They locked them up in the jail. The GI, after they get in control of the ballots and things calm down, they form units to patrol the streets of Athens to keep law and order. And later, the GIs returned all the firearms that they took from the armory and secured them safely. The GIs discovered voting tally sheets marked 15-1 for the Cantrell ticket members. Where the GIs witnessed accounts, the margin was 3-1 for the GIs. In the end, ultimately, only the precincts where both sides were able to watch it were counted. At 4 a.m. the next morning, August the 2nd, 1946, the battle is over. Veterans armed with rifles patrol the streets and so forth. They raided the local joints and brought in gambling machines that were part of the Cantrell machine. We're coming up on a break. Let me tell you about we'll come up on a break, and I'll tell you about the counterattack that happened or that was threatened to occur, and what happened in the days after the Battle of Athens.
Okay. Very, very interesting. It just shows again that you got the power, at least, when there's nowhere else to turn to change that form of government if it becomes so despotic that you can't do anything else about it. Mr. Producer, how much time we got? 15 seconds. All right. We'll be back after this break with more of Matt Green in Armed Alabama. We'll try to take your calls here. We got two people lined up. We'll try to squeeze you in, but get your question as succinct and quick as possible, and we'll try to get to you. Hold on. We'll be right back.
All right. Welcome back to the last segment of Armed Alabama. We're going to take some phone calls real quick. We have Mike's calling from Monroeville. What you got, Mike?
Yes, Judge. I was on touch base with you and see, as a supporter of open carry, what is your opinion, because I haven't been able to listen for the past few weeks, of where the sheriffs are against the legislation to have pistol permits? If a person was going to cause harm, would a pistol permit matter, or is it an instance where the sheriffs just don't want to give up the extra money they have coming in?
I think, number one, is a combination of, it's always been done this way. Having worked in government, I fought that all the time. Hey, we've always done it this way. Nobody wants to change. And two, especially in a lot of smaller counties, it is a lot of money. But you're right, criminals don't pay attention to the law. So it has nothing to do with that. It's just that it's always been done this way, so we want to keep doing it that way. And in the back of their minds, they probably think it does something, but we know it doesn't. Got to run to that next one. Thank you for calling.
Appreciate it, Mike. Next caller is Peter's calling from Pensacola. Hey, what you got?
All right, gentlemen, I'm driving, so I'll make this quick. I just wasn't able to make the NRA annual meeting this year. However, if you go online to nraam.org, you can actually see videos of some of the speeches. Also on their website for NRA News, I think it may be NRA TV now, you can get videos of all of the speeches that were done this past week.
Good point. Good point.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. Next caller is Dennis from Atmore. Hey, Dennis.
Hey, how you doing now, Adam? Hey, just based on what your last caller said, just want to thank you for the time and the videos that you posted from the NRA convention. A lot of good information there.
Thank you, Dennis.
But been listening the whole time, and Matt Green didn't want him to get off the air without letting him know how much we appreciate the detailed, in-depth historical account of the Battle of Athens. After you posted on the website that this was going to be the topic, I went and did some reading on it, but all I can tell you is that Matt Green has really added a lot to it. And all I want to say is for the GIs of 1946, they were fighting the thugs of government, and today we are fighting the thugs of anarchists. And I guess my point is I thank the Lord that we do still have our Second Amendment rights, and I would to God that there were more men and women like Bill White. And that's all I wanted to say, and I appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much for the phone call. Matt, let's finish up this last segment, buddy. You still got some really good information here about the Battle of Athens, Tennessee, 1946, where the citizens rose up and took back their government from some thugs.
Thank you, Dennis. But let me tell you, the GIs, they peacefully handed over their guns and returned power to the lawfully and duly elected authorities. They held a town meeting called shortly after the Battle of Athens. They elected a 3-man commission as the interim government. The Reverend Bernie Hampton addressed this mass meeting. All the townspeople came together, and Bernie read the 23rd Psalm, seeking guidance as to how the town should proceed with the new government.
Did they hang anybody?
No, they did not. They did not. They said, Reverend Hampton said, "You have won the battle, boys. Now don't lose the war. Go home." And that's exactly what they did. There was a short, briefly there. There was rumors that Mansfield folks were going to issue a counterattack. Unfortunately, that never transpired, but it caused a lot of concern, and the GIs didn't immediately disband. But they did get together and patrol the streets, and they had roadblocks. They engaged in protecting the town in case these armed thugs came back and attempted to take power. The Knoxville newspaper ran the story about this proposed counterattack. 1,500 citizens and GIs, upon learning of the proposed counterattack, reported to this town square. Even kids with BB guns and even one old man with a flintlock rifle came. Sharpshooters and GIs lined buildings of the town in preparation for the counterattack. One GI veteran had a war surplus AT-6 military trainer for reconnaissance, and he took that up in the air with his pistol and to fire a warning shot in the event of a counterattack. When the counterattack didn't materialize, to their credit, the citizens and the GIs voluntarily left their guns at the courthouse with the Reverend and the committee, where their names were tagged and name tags were affixed to the government, to the guns. So they really did it right. All the town officials in this Mansfield people resigned. They quit, and then the people came together and formed an interim government because they had a month until the new the GIs were sworn in. That was a peaceful transition of power. It was just it took them to rise up against this government to do it. At last, decency and honesty, liberty and law have returned to the fine county of McMinn, said the United States Representative John Jennings from the 2nd Congressional District. And I'll end on this. We talked about earlier this Bruce Evans, who was one of the Cantrell guys, who was a revenuer, who had the, was it 7 or 8 justifiable kills under his hat as a deputy and as a member of the Cantrell machine. In 1947, a year after the Battle of Athens, Evans shot and killed a political enemy. The rumor was that the victim and the victim's family was beefing with Mr. Evans over a result of the Battle of Athens. It was a highly publicized trial. Evans was actually represented by a GI nonpartisan chairman and lawyer, Ralph Dugans. They argued self-defense.
Steve Dugan.
He argued self-defense. The jury deadlocked at a 9-3 acquittal. Okay, so 3 days before the second trial, Evans and his young grandson go to hop at his 1941 Ford Coupe. Was in the barn, cranked it up, and blew him to smithereens. Blew off his right arm and left arm, almost completely blown off. And the last chapter of the Battle of Athens was written. And I will say this. The judge in the case, in Evans' case, the revenuer, was a judge by the name of Judge Sue K. Hicks. And Judge Johnston, here's a little trivia for you. You know who Judge Sue?
Boy named Sue.
He was the inspiration for Johnny Cash's A Boy Named Sue.
Wow.
But the Battle of Athens, I think, should stand for the proposition that the Second Amendment is a doomsday provision. When all else fails and government stands to stand for election honestly, and they usurp powers beyond those delegated, that you have a right and a duty to defend yourself and your constitutional rights. If it didn't turn out as it did, sure, they could have been prosecuted for treason. But if treason doth prosper, none dare call it treason.
There you go. And I'm getting ready to put up something from the Declaration of Independence that kind of makes this point.
Why does treason never prosper? If it does prosper, none dare call it treason.
Exactly. You can.
Undoubtedly, some think that the Second Amendment is outmoded in a society where our standing army is the pride of our nation, where well-trained police forces provide personal security, and where gun violence is a serious problem. That is perhaps debatable. But what is not debatable is that it is not the role of this court to pronounce the Second Amendment extinct.
Judge, I just want to say one thing. We've done a video of this presentation. I'll get the judge to post it online. We'll have pictures and audio of more of Bill White. We'll share it on the web page, on the Facebook page, so y'all can see the rest of the story.
And there's also a movie that was made about the Battle of Athens that I actually watched it on YouTube. Maybe I ought to try to get that and post it as well. It's pretty accurate, too, to the story that you just gave.
That's great. That's great.
Well, thank you, guys, for having me tonight. I'm glad I could share this, and I hope that people will be more engaged with their liberties.
All right. Well, next week we will be back with another exciting topic. We want to thank all of our sponsors, the Ace Hardware Stores. We want to thank McCoy Outdoors. We want to thank David Parnell with Palmer's Toyota. We thank Dr. Justin Foster. Who am I leaving out?
Grayson
Air Conditioning.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Right now, you better get that air tuned up and ready to go because it's getting hot.
It's going to start getting hot, so make sure you call Grayson's Heating and Air to have them come out and check over your AC. Make sure it's in good health before it really starts getting hot.
Absolutely. So we'll be back next week on this channel, FM Talk 1065, the #1 news talk channel, and this is Armed Alabama, the state's only FM-based firearms talk radio show. And remember, you can watch this replay on YouTube in a couple of days, and please do so. We'll see you next week.